You're listening to the Fierce Fatty Podcast, episode 72. Are we fat because of trauma plus age positivity? Let's do it.
Perfect.
I'm Victoria Welsby, TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and fat activist. I have transformed my life from hating my body with desperately low self-esteem to being a courageous and confident, fierce fatty who loves every inch of this jelly. Society teaches us living in a fat body is bad, but what if we spent less time, money, and energy on the pursuit of thinness and instead focused on the things that actually matter, like if pineapple on pizza should be outlawed, or if the mullet was the greatest haircut of the 20th century. So, how do you stop negative beliefs about your fat body controlling your life? It's the Fierce Fatty Podcast. Let's begin. Hello and welcome to this episode, Fatty. How's life? Are you staying fierce? Fatty? Question. I hope you are relaxing. I hope you're not working too much. I was thinking today, I've been really busy and I hate this kind of I'm so busy culture, where it's like, I'm so important. I'm so busy. I don't think we should be busy. I think we should be working less and relaxing more and just, having our hands down our pants a little bit more and, because all that kind of culture of hustle culture, it's problematic. It's no good. Let's not hustle. Let's just all have a big old nap, okay? This is me giving myself a pep talk. Stop working so much. Because I've been working a lot, and I was working till like 7:30 last night. To some people that might not be late, but for me, I'm kind of like want to finish working at 5, and normally Dougal, the dog, starts complaining at 5, around 5, between 5 and 6. If I haven't or taken him out for a walk, he'll start stamping his feet, staring at me, doing like little because he doesn't want to be rude about it. He doesn't want to bark at me. He wants to be like, hey, it's time for you to stop working now, please. So I took him for a walk yesterday, and then I came back and made myself, I didn't even make myself proper dinner. I was like, I'm too busy. I'm just like, had some cereal and snacky things and whatever. So yeah, that didn't feel good. So in the evening, at night time, I went to bed earlier than normal, and I found this app. It's called Loona or Ioona. I don't know if that's an L or an I, but Loona. And it's kind of this like, you do this, I don't even know how to fucking describe it. It's just like relaxing. It's that you do a task, and the task relaxes you, and then they put on some music. And so I did that, and I was like, I'm so fucking relaxed. And then I fell asleep, and I have a sleep app that monitors my sleep to see what I'm up to and stuff, called Sleep Cycle. And it said that it was like a 97% good sleep. So obviously it worked. Although I put on this sleep story, right? And the sleep story was, oh, I'm at a beach. And I'm like, yes, beach. Oh, I'm there to collect a stone. And I'm like, yeah, very boring. This is going to make me fall asleep. And then the story was like, I went out and I waded out and the water was warm, but then it suddenly got cold. And I was like, what? This sounds a bit scary. And then they're like, the sand fell beneath my, dipped down, and I'm out further than I think. And I'm like, this is not fucking relaxing. I'm scared. Is this person going to die? Like, what is this? And then they're like, looking over, and I can barely see the shore and the shape of the shore so far away. And I'm like, This is not relaxing. I'm like, my heart is beating because this person's going to die. I've got to think about kind of being out in the ocean and it being a bit scary. So, and then they said, oh, and a seal came. I'm like, great, now nature is coming. So anyway, it made me fall asleep, but I wasn't happy about it. I was like, I'm falling asleep, but I'm angry about this sleep story. Anyway, so go try out that app. It's free. You can pay for it, but then there's like free options where it's probably not as good. But yeah, so I have got a couple of listener questions that I wanted to answer today in this podcast. If you want to send me a question that I will potentially answer on the show, then just email me, victoria@fiercefatty.com. And yeah, if I think that it's something that other people will benefit from the answer, I will answer it on the show. Okay, so first question comes from Peggy. Peggy's such a cool name. Okay, so Peggy says, hi, I first heard of you on Christy Harrison's podcast, and I really enjoyed it. I've been on Christy's podcast a couple of times, most recently, maybe 6 months ago. Anyway, side note. My problem, though, is finding more people like me to identify with. I follow you and love your attitude, but you and most of your pics are of young, lovely people with quote-unquote firmer fat. I turned 60 last summer and have dieted since the age of 12 with 4 major losses. Losses here, I thought losses meant something else, but 4 major losses as in losing weight, I think is what Peggy's saying. 4 major weight losses and 3 babies during my life. The last loss in 2016 was from complications of a lap band that kept me from eating for several months before the band being removed. I couldn't swallow water by the end. I have had to watch much of the weight return over the last 4 years, which has been devastating, even though I expected it. I had enjoyed the benefits of loss that weren't just about appearance, sleeping in a bed without having to get up in 4 hours with back pain, playing cello without having to reach and get shoulder pain, flying without the humiliation of asking for an extension, etc. A year ago, I started seeing a dietitian certified in intuitive eating and a psychologist who specializes in eating disorders. I also retired from practicing medicine 2 years ago and am dedicated to learning as much as I can to contribute to a local body positive group. I feel more comfortable with eating than I have in 50 years, but I continue to fight the dieting thoughts. I've recently been organising photos and I'm feeling quite depressed after seeing myself looking lighter than I do now. My face has lost all chin definition with my sagging neck and I can't stop obsessing about my abdomen. I decided to go on Instagram to give myself a dose of fat pics, but as I said, I don't really see anyone over 50 that I can identify with. Sorry, I have been so long-winded. I hope that you might have some suggestions to point me in the right direction. Thanks so much for all that you do. It's important work. Smiley face, Peggy. Okay, so many people, I bet, will resonate with lots of different things there in Peggy's email. I bet the kind of the pain of losing weight and putting it back on and then seeing photos of yourself looking lighter and that not being your reality now, and not finding pictures of people who look like you on Instagram. So there's a whole movement out there called age positivity, which is all about, shocker, age positivity. Now, a big kind of note to take here is that the pictures of older people that are on Instagram, they're fucking glamorous as shit, right? These women that are in the age positive movements, they're basically models who happen to be 60, 70, 80, 90, right? And so I want you to bear that in mind. But there are also lots of fatties and people who, I don't know what you look like, but I think probably look more like you. And so on Instagram, there are a couple of tags that I would like you to go and look up. The first one is the biggest one. It's age positive. So on Instagram, you can just go search in the bar age positive. I checked this morning and there's 134,000 posts. So I think in the 134,000, because obviously you're going to go through everyone. No, but you're going to find people that, are going to make you feel inspired. And I'm going to link to I'm going to link to 4 people that I think might be inspiring for you or not. So that's one thing. But the one that I like even better is the hashtag AgePo. So AGEPO. And that was started by my friend and colleague, Summer Innanen. And Summer, I think she's 41 now. And she noticed that like a lot of her clients who were dealing with this body stuff and being older and not seeing that representation. So she started that hashtag of AgePo. And the posts in the AgePo, they're more fat people. They're more people doing the work versus influencers. And influencers are great, right? It's like, oh, look, their outfits are so fucking good. But then people who are, not doing this as a job, they'll just chuck a picture up of them in their outfit, just going to work, and it's like a normal day, and they happen to be fat. And not everyone is fat in AgePo, but there's only 3,500 posts there. But still, 3,500, that's loads. And it's growing. So just a couple of years ago, there was only 15,000 in both of these tags. There was only 15,000 posts. So this is a growing movement. And I'm going to link to a Time article that talks about this, but it talks about Gen X women. I know that you're not Gen X. I think that you, Peggy, are a boomer. Correct me if I'm wrong. All of this is so blurred and like whatever. But anyway, so this article says, what is it called? Body positive movement, Gen X women. Gen X women feel excluded from body positive movement. Okay, so Gen X is about the age of 40 to 55. And what they're saying in this article is there's representation of people who are 70, 80, 90, but there's less representation for people who are like 40 to 60. There's still not enough representation of people who are 70, 80, 90. But okay, so here's a little quote from it, talking about this stuff. Age positivity from this Time article. All of these things I'm going to link below. Although when I say below, like if you go to fiercefatty.com/72 or fiercefatty.com/podcast, if that's the number is too difficult to remember in your head. Okay, here's a quote from that article. Although studies on body image mostly focus on college or teenage women, a 2015 review of the existing research on older women showed that just like their younger counterparts, they suffer from the same negative feelings about their bodies when confronted with standards that promote thinness as ideal. Only in midlife, they're up against a second impossible, quote-unquote, ideal, a taut, wrinkle-free, youthful one, causing this cohort to engage in, quote-unquote, old talk, conversation that belittles the natural things that happen as we age. According to a 2013 study published in the Journal of Eating Disorders, full stop, according to another study from 2004 published in the journal Body Image found that body dissatisfaction was remarkably stable across the adult lifespan for women. The changes women, and this is a quote from the study, the changes women in their bodies go through midlife are arguably as drastic as the changes girls and their bodies go through in puberty, says Ginny Ramsayer Winter, an assistant professor at the School of Social Work at the University of Missouri, Columbia, who studies body image and adolescence. Okay, so that's a little quote. Go read the article. You'll get some people to follow there. But some people, if you're on Instagram right now, let me give you some names. So the first person that I found when I searched age positive, and I was like, oh, they look great, is Robin, like the bird, Robin, and I'm going to spell the name Charmagne. Charmaine, but spelled Charmagne. So Robin Charmaine. Robin doesn't mention how old they are, but they look amazing, and they mentioned that they're older. Okay, so next we've got Glitter Glamour. So Glitter, Glama. Glitter Glamour. I guess maybe it's like that's a word play on grammar, but glamour. So llama with a G on the front, or maybe it's llama. Grandma llama. It's not about llamas. Glitter Glamour. Glama. Okay, next is like the most famous old person, but they are straight size, is Baddie Winkle, Baddie Winkle, Winkle. Baddie Winkle is 90 plus years old, and it's so fucking fabulous. It's just, I'm just mad about it. So that's a 90 plus year old, but Baddie is straight sized. Next, Idaho Amy. Idaho Amy is 45. Idaho underscore Amy, AMY. So Idaho Amy is famous for doing a stand for self-love, where she blindfolded herself and asked people to come right on her in a busy market. And Amy is a smaller fat person, so just an FYI there. So there's a few people to go and follow. I'm going to link to them. But aside from finding people who look like you, that's how you do it. And the more that you, when you follow one of these people, it will say press follow, and then underneath it will pop up saying, here are similar accounts. And so just by following those people, you're going to find more and more similar accounts that are more aligned with people who look like you, alongside younger people if you want to. But if you find seeing those younger bodies triggering right now, just temporarily unfollow me. No, it could be temporary, it could be forever. If it's not good for your mental health, then or you can just listen. Here, you don't have to look at me when you're doing the podcast. So that's an idea too. So aside from all that, I wanted to mention about the good times of being thin and all the things that you could do, and talking about kind of mourning that and really sitting with the idea of what you had to do to get there. Something that really stood out was when you said, complications, this is a quote from you, complications of a lap band that kept me from eating for several months. And at the end, I couldn't swallow water. And so, yes, you had a smaller body and enjoyed societal benefits of having a smaller body, like getting a seat on an airplane, but at what cost? At what cost? Not being able to eat, not being able to drink water. Like, you got those things, but you were dying. You were literally dying, And so, at what cost? I want to remind you. And so, thinking about all of those things that we do to become thin, and then we're like, we kind of romanticize it and be like, oh my God, remember when, I was this size and I looked so good, but I looked so good and I was dying, and my mental health was seriously unstable at that time, and I was doing all of these things that were damaging my physical health and my mental health. That's one thing I want to point out. And also, you experience these other benefits you mentioned, being able to sleep, play your cello and not have aches and whatnot. And I want to ask the question of, do we know for sure it's because you had less adipose tissue on your body that those things were doable for you? So remember, correlation is not causation. Just because you had a smaller body, was it the fact that you had a smaller body, you had less adipose tissue, or was it the fact that you were engaging in different types of behaviors that could have helped with those things? For example, were you more active? Were you building muscle? What helpful behaviors were you engaging in during that time that could be the reason why those things were happening? Now, we don't know, right? I'm asking these questions, just asking these questions. And if you want to, can you now, so we know, we've established that being thin is not possible for like most people, even through surgery. And so, okay, so we can't become thin, but what can we do to, if we want to, increase your range of motion, increase your strength, support your body in bed, whatever it is. So what can we do to help these things in the body that you have now? So, you know, and it could be that you had this extra tissue on your body that it made it more difficult to reach for the cello. You know, it could be that. But there's so far in your life and in most people's lives shown that we can't get thin. So what can we do instead to support our health if you want to? And of course, health is not a moral obligation. But, you know, I kind of want to point that out to see if there are ways for you to ease that transition back into your normal, you know, your body that you've had most of your life. And I also want to recognize that moving from a body that is hated by society into a body that is more accepted, and then back again into that less privileged group, really fucking sucks. It sucks to go, and everything alongside it. So the praise that you probably got, the, oh my God, you know, you're going to live forever now that you've lost weight, and oh my God, you look so good, and well done, and what hard work, and all that type of praise that we get. And then, you know, how everyone kind of goes silent, and then when we put weight back on, and the shame that we feel. And, you know, that societal privilege is huge, to lose that privilege. But this is not a game that we want to play, right? We don't want to be blaming our bodies for the issues in society, like plain belts not being made for humans. Like, you're a human being, fat people are human beings, plain seatbelts are not made for humans. They're made for a few humans, not everyone. And so recognizing that that's fucked up. It doesn't mean your body's fucked up. That is fucked up. Society is fucked up. And you can do things to help yourself in those situations if you want to. Something like, and you shouldn't have to do this, seatbelts should be the right size, plain belts should be the right size. You can buy a seatbelt extender online for plane trips, because you mentioned having to ask for an extender and how that was embarrassing for you, and understandably so. And so you can buy one online relatively cheap. You can buy one if anyone needs one in the car, you can buy one there. And so you can support yourself in dealing with this fucked up society. So I hope that helps. I know we kind of went off a tangent there because you were just asking for age positivity things, but you know, there was a lot of stuff in that email, and I was just like, oh, Peggy, oh no, that sounds really difficult, and I would want to give you a fatty hug. And yeah, so, and amazing that you have a group in your area that you're engaged with. Like, how cool is that? That's really cool. There's probably a body positive group in Vancouver I don't know about. Okay, so on to the next question now. And just a trigger warning here. There's going to be mentions of abuse. We're talking about how does having a fat body, you know, does that stem from being abused and sexual assault and that type of thing. So if that is not feeling good for you today, then skip the rest of this episode. Okay, so I got an email here from Bianca. So Bianca says, Dear Victoria, I have read your book and I loved it. I'm listening to your podcasts and doing the work. I'm also reading the book Health at Every Size from Lindo Bacon. Now I'm at this page and I would like you to look at it. Please, what do you think about this? Can you tell me more about this? Or maybe in a podcast. It says in the book that being fat can have a reason, for example, as protection. That I actually unconsciously like to be fat. Being fat is a protective layer. For example, a man who was abused by a man as a 10-year-old boy and then slowly gained weight. He subconsciously liked being fat so that men wouldn't find him attractive. So fat is protection here. Do you understand me? Love from Holland. Greetings, Bianca. Okay, thank you, Bianca, for the question. Bianca actually attached a few pages, a few excerpts from Health at Every Size. So I've got the Health at Every Size book here, the OG one from when I first started this journey. And there's lots of pages that are folded over and post-it notes and highlights and all stuff. Like I remember having this book in my hand and being like, what the actual fuck? Who? What? Why has no one told me this before? Okay, so it's old. It's old. So let's go to the page. Now, if you're reading along, it's page 183. So everyone get their Health at Every Size books by Lindo Bacon. If you want to read along, I'm going to read 1, 2, 3 pages to you. Okay, so settle in. You can maybe use this as your sleep aid. If you're falling asleep, I'm going to read you 3 pages from the book. Okay, page 183 from Health at Every Size. Understand your internal motivation. In exploring your feelings about weight and appearance vis-a-vis society's messages, I want you to ask yourself a question. Do you want to be fat? Some large people unconsciously do. When I first present this idea, most people think I'm crazy. Just a note there that that's ableist language. No one can even remotely consider that they might prefer to be fat in this fatphobic culture. But suspend your disbelief for a moment as you try the following exercise. Picture yourself at a party at your current weight. Pay attention to your clothes, how you feel in your body, how you interact with others. Now replay the party, this time visualizing yourself at what you view as your quote-unquote ideal weight. When I asked my study participants to do this, the results were surprising. Even though they are the same person in each scenario, they report that their weight played a dramatic role in how they felt and the quality of their participation and interaction with others. Many reported that their fat afforded them some quote-unquote protection. It allowed them to recede into the background and hide. It helped them avoid being marketed, judged, viewed as a sexual object, or in competition with others. It's not surprising that so many of us feel this ambivalence about our body size, that we revile ourselves for being fat, but we value the protection it affords. This experience derives from our social context. For some of us, certainly not all, overeating, note there, is there a thing as overeating? Overeating and getting fat is an unconscious rebellion against the social expectations placed on us. Listen to what my study participants found. Several women said that they felt that while others at the party were judging other women there, their fat enabled them to escape the pressure of evaluation based on appearance. It was as if their fat was saying, "Take me for who I am, not for who I am supposed to be." The result? Relief that they weren't being checked out by others. Several women in my study connected their weight gain to motherhood. Once they became mothers, it meant that everyone else's needs came first. So they learned to take care of others, but not to acknowledge or to make space for their own needs. They viewed their fat as a physical representation of their role as nurturers and caretakers, and a sign that they had abdicated their role as sexual beings, which they felt was an important part of being mothers. The benefit of this exercise wasn't limited to women. When I asked a man I was counseling to try this exercise, he recalled being sexually molested as a child. His weight gain began his weight gain began soon after. It was as if he were trying to make himself unappealing so his abuser wouldn't approach him anymore. He acknowledged that his current weight still provided the same protections as long as he's quote-unquote overweight. Others are less likely to pay attention to him. When a woman flirted with him at work, it made him very uncomfortable and he started to binge. Another client described his fat as allowing him to look and be substantial, as if by taking up more space he could be noticed and taken more seriously. If you recognize yourself in any of these stories, it's time you explored the benefits of being fat and the ways in which you rely on your fat to protect you. Otherwise, I'm going to talk about this line, so a big kind of asterisk on this line. Otherwise, you may continue to sabotage yourself when it comes to developing healthier habits. If you feel stuck, it may be because you continue to address your weight as an eating/exercise problem you need to control, rather than understanding it as a protective device you've created to help you get through your days. But be careful before you jump to this conclusion. Some of us may assign it to ourselves because we've heard it over and over. You know, the fat people are fat because they're scared of intimacy stereotype. We generalize the legitimate problems of the minority onto the majority of larger people. Contrary to popular belief, however, studies indicate that larger people are not significantly different than thinner individuals with respect to sexual satisfaction. Try this exercise to help answer the "do I need my fat?" question. Picture yourself in various social settings, parties, family gatherings, sporting events, time alone with your partner, a first date, being sexual, at various weights. Focus on the positive elements of your weight, and in each scenario, ask yourself the following questions. What advantages of being fat? What are the advantages of being fat? What parts of my personality does my fat express? How could I express these parts of myself if I were... Page needs to be turned thinner. Are there any negatives to being my ideal size? Are there any fears associated with being my ideal size? What aspects of my personality do I currently suppress because of my size? How might I express these aspects if I weren't worried about my weight? As you start to acknowledge the ways in which your weight benefits and protects you, you can move forward to taking conscious responsibilities for these benefits and protection instead of allowing your fat to do it for you. For instance, if this exercise shows that you use your fat as an excuse not to be sexually active, you need to examine your fears about sex. You then have the option to decide you don't want to be sexually active and own that choice instead of using your body as an excuse not to have sex. Or you can decide that you want to become more sexually active and move beyond the limits you set for yourself. Okay, so that is an excerpt from Our Every Size by Lindo Bacon, PhD, and the question that Bianca submitted. So the question is, are we fat because of abuse, or because it's a protective layer, or because it has some benefit to us that we don't realize? So this is a stereotype, and Lindo mentions that in the book. And just an FYI, Lindo is a straight-sized, non-binary human, pronouns they, them. So this is a stereotype, and this is 3 pages from this book, which is 374 pages, and it's like a small kind of, hey, consider this type of thing. And I think it's, a hey, consider this, but it is not the reality for most fat people. The reason that people are fat are in the hundreds. It is so diverse. But the way that we perceive fatness in society is that it is a personal failure, that it is a choice, and the reason why people are fat is because they eat too much food and they don't exercise enough. And if we're being generous in society, we say that is something that you're doing subconsciously. You're not consciously trying to gain weight. And so pathologizing fat bodies and saying, if we're being generous, it's not your fault that you're fat, that you ate so much food because you were abused as a kid. Now, thing is, sometimes stereotypes can happen to be true for some people. And I don't think this is the reality for most fat people. But we love to try and work out, like, what has gone wrong with that fat person that they've got a body that's so fucking disgusting. Like, how could they do that to themselves? Oh, they're doing that to themselves because so there's some other benefit that is, it's more painful to experience this negative outcome than it is for them to be fat. And so, there's something wrong with their brain, sort of thing. And I remember believing this so much. I remember exactly where I was in the car with my then boyfriend, what street we were on, the fact that we were making a right turn. And I was in the passenger seat, and I said to him, I think every single fat person is fat because they have a mental health issue. And he's a straight size guy. His family are fat people. And I was, fat. And I'm surprised he said this, but he was like, I don't think so. Really? And I was like, yes, definitely. All fat people are fat because there's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with their brain. There's something, that it's an issue that has manifested on their body, including myself in that stereotype. And we see it so often in business coaching, in all sorts of coaching, people saying that being fat or the size of your body is a manifestation of shit that you've not worked out in your life. So being fat shows you that you have some type of problem or mental health issue that you need to fix. And now there's nothing wrong with having mental health issues. Like, I live with depression, and that doesn't mean that's why I'm fat. But, connecting the two there and saying the reason why someone is fat is it's a health issue. The reason is a health issue. And it's not because there just happens to be fat people in the world. And it's not because of all the other reasons that people are fat. And that it just makes me want to stab someone in the face. When I hear that kind of weight is like a manifestation of your issues on your body. And I'm just like, no. But there are some people who this is true for. I'm not going to say there's no fat people who subconsciously wanted to get fat because they experienced trauma or abuse, or there's not any fat people who experience trauma or abuse and consciously wanted to get fat or stay fat or become fatter or whatever it is. But there's a big word on that note, on that big note on that word some. There are some people, but it's not. I don't think it's often the reality for most fat people. Being fat is super complex, and what we know is that being poor, being a Black, Indigenous person of color, not having access to healthcare, genetics, living in food deserts, being overworked, experiencing stress, and a massive thing, experiencing stigma, massive thing there, experiencing stigma are reasons why some people have a higher likelihood of being fat or are fat. Basically, it's a social justice issue. And that also includes experiencing trauma, like trauma and the way that we deal with it as a society is a social justice issue, right? And as well, I want to acknowledge there are benefits to being fat. Like, hello. Of course there's benefits to being fat. Being fat is amazing. We talk about the horrors of being fat and the way that I'm reading that passage is kind of, I don't know, there might be a note of, do you actually like it? because if you like it, that's kind of weird. There might be a note of that. I don't know. Obviously, things can be misconstrued, but, are there benefits to being fat? Fuck yeah, there are benefits, because I think being fat is awesome. So, for example, for me, it feels like I'm in some cool club, like a secret society. It's not so secret, but but I'm in this group of people, other awesome fatties, and especially being in Vancouver where there's like 3 fat people. Whenever I see a fat person, that's hyperbole. Whenever I see a fat person on the street, it's kind of like I feel like, oh hey, I'm not like, oh hey, because they're probably like, what the fuck, go away. Now I'm like, ooh, there's another one of us, because there's it's very kind of there's lots of straight size people here. Also, I see my body as a dickhead screening device. So if someone doesn't like me because of my size, then that's great that I don't accidentally have to have them in my life. Like if I was a straight size person, I don't have this. I could end up being friends with or dating someone, even worse, that is fat phobic. And I've not discovered that because they're dating me because I'm straight size. And it's only if, I happen to become fat or, their views on fatness comes out or something, I don't know, that I'm like, oh shit, I've fallen in love with a fat phobe. Whereas it's less likely that's going to happen because a fat phobe might not want to date me. Probably not. Who knows? They might do because they secretly love fat people. And something I want to go back to is in that book I said, oh, hey, I'm going to make a note on this, this bit. So in the book it says, otherwise, it says, if you recognize yourself in one of these stories, it's time you explored the benefits of being fat and the ways in which you rely on your fat to protect you. Otherwise, you may continue to sabotage yourself when it comes to developing healthier habits. So that line kind of stood out to me because it's kind of, it feels like it's correlating. It's saying that you have a choice to be fat, and that if you subconsciously want to be fat, maybe what it's saying is if you subconsciously want to be fat, you're not going to engage in behaviors that are health promoting, because you believe that if you engage in behaviors that are health promoting, like reducing your stress or dismantling systemic fat phobia, which is, I don't think this is not what Lindo is saying here. I think Lindo is saying is like moving your body more, because moving your body is definitely beneficial for your health. So maybe this is what it's saying here, is that if you secretly like being fat, you are not going to move your body as much, which is kind of problematic because it's saying it's presuming that you don't already engage in healthful behaviors, health promoting behaviors. I mean, you could secretly like being fat and be quote unquote the healthiest fat person out there. We don't know. So anyway, I just wanted to make a quick note on that. And also, something I want to say here is that the idea of being fat will mean that you are left alone by creeps. I tell you what, check out any fat person who has any type of following on Instagram, their DMs. You will not be left alone by creeps. Anyway, that's anecdotal, but the idea that being fat will protect you and that you're not going to be judged as much is not most people's experiences. It is some fat people's experiences for sure, but I don't think it's most fat people's experiences that you're going to be left alone. And I think maybe the belief that you are going to be left alone, that might, just be a belief and not the reality. But the reality, however, is that being fat doesn't stop you from potentially being the victim of a sexual assault. In fact, some studies show it increases the likelihood, because sexual assault is not about who you're attracted to. Sexual assault is about power. And sometimes those with less perceived power in society are the ones who perpetrators target. So I want to share this study for you. I'm going to share the link in the show notes. The study is called Tipping the Scales: Effects of Gender, Rape Myth Acceptance, and Anti-Fat Attitudes on Judgments of Sexual Coercion Scenarios. Okay, so I'm just going to read the blurb from this. They use O words here, and so anytime they use O words, I'm just going to change it for the word fat. Okay, so this is from the study. A damaging belief exists that to become a victim of sexual violence, victims must be deemed sexually desirable. As a result, sexual violations where the victims are individuals whom society may deem as less attractive, such as fat women, may elicit less empathy for the victim or minimize the likelihood that they are believed. Yet there is some evidence that fat women actually report higher rates of sexual violence than women of other weight categories. Although there has been some research implicating weight biases in sexual assault cases, this has not been extended to cases of sexual coercion despite their growing share of police reports. A sample of 198 participants were recruited from Canada via social media, brackets N equals 82, and through a mid-sized university in Ontario, Canada, brackets N equals 86. Using a mock jury paradigm, participants responded to a vignette depicting the sexual coercion of a thin or fat woman. Participants reported their opinions on the sexual coercion scenario and prejudicial attitudes using two standardized scales. Men reported greater rape myth acceptance, anti-fat attitudes, and victim responsibility, and endorsed significantly more perpetrator mitigating factors and expressed more negative effect towards the victim. Participants in the fat condition also expressed greater perpetrator sympathy, greater perpetrator mitigation, and less negative affect towards the perpetrator. These results suggest that fat women may face additional barriers when reporting their experience of sexual coercion, particularly to men. So, I was just thinking about that, how people who don't understand about what sexual assault is, how it's about power, it's not about attractiveness, often struggle to believe when a fat person experiences that. Like, you remember, who was the rapper? There was a rapper 2 years ago, and he had sex with a woman, and she was like super fat. She was very fat. I think kind of super fat size. And this woman was on TV and said, after, it was Usher. I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm 90% sure. Usher, after having sex with Usher, she contracted herpes, and so she was suing him for that. And the media coverage was, we can't believe that someone like Usher, who we have decided in society is attractive and rich and has power and all that type of stuff, would have sex with someone like her. And as well, she was black. She was a black, supersized woman. Why would he, do that? Because we've decided in society, is unappealing, is unattractive, blah, blah, blah. And then people being like, oh my God, Usher is like a chubby chaser. Ooh, there's something wrong with him. So in conclusion, yes, it is the reality for some fat people that they want to be fat consciously or unconsciously. And what's wrong with that? What is wrong with that? Because, nothing. There's nothing wrong with being fat. And so some people may recognize this as a trait about them and decide that they want to work on the underlying issues. Or they may realize that the way that they're coping with what's going on with them is working for them. Being fat is working for them. And, what's the alternative? Not be fat. The alternative is deciding, okay, I'm going to work on any trauma that I have. And, people that might not be accessible for some people to be able to do that. And it might not even be an issue. Someone might unconsciously, subconsciously want to be fat and, whatever, that might work for them. And we want to move away from stereotyping fat people and pathologizing fatness. Okay? So maybe fat people are fat because that is a natural way to have a body. Fat bodies are just normal. Straight size bodies are just normal. Tall people, short people, different skin colors, different gender expressions. Maybe that's just normal. It's kind of a rhetorical question there. It is normal. That's just what humans look like, right? And so why do we have to, pathologize it and be like, we're not doing this about, tall people. We're not being like, maybe they really want to be tall because this or that or whatever. People are just tall or short or whatever, Leave us fatties alone, God. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. And thank you for hanging out with me today. And for 5-6, I swear this video, I check in on the video from time to time to make sure it's still going. This is the webcam. I swear. Maybe I need to get another webcam. Whatever. Whatever. I'll work it out. Okay, well, thanks for hanging out with me today. Remember to stay fierce, fatty, and I will see you later, crocodile. Okay, bye. Thanks for listening to the episode. And if you feel ready to get serious about this work and want to know when the doors open to Fierce Fatty Academy, which is my signature program where I teach all about how to overcome your fat phobic beliefs and learn to love your fat body, then go to fiercefatty.com/waitlist. Again, that is fiercefatty.com/waitlist to get your name on the waitlist for when Fierce Fatty Academy, my signature program, opens.